God's Word is the very thing that we need for growing and understanding. And so the best way to do this is to give you a picture of a hand with our 5 fingers. And this is nothing new from me. It's from the Navigators. But what I've done is I've tweaked it a little bit so that you can see just what is involved with this. Because the idea is that I want you to get a better grip on God's Word. First of all, you start out with the thumb. And the thumb is the first half of your hand that can grip. And the thumb represents how we meditate. And the word meditate means to think over and over on something. You know, we often worry about something and we're anxious and we mull over in our mind the thought over and over again. Well, the same way with meditating is that we're taking it in a positive way and meditating on something in God's Word and thinking about it over and over. And so that's the first half of our grip. The second half involves our 4 fingers. And I want to start with the little finger. And the little finger represents us reading and hearing God's Word. Now, according to research, you're only going to remember about 5 to 10% of what you hear. You know the little phrase that says, in one ear and out the other, right? Well, a lot of times it's hard to retain something that you hear, perhaps from a lecture or from somebody telling a story. But a lot of times that when we hear or read something, we don't retain it as well. And it kind of, if you were to look at it, if you look at God's Word, and we have the thumb and meditating, and you have the little finger, if you were to take a grip on that, it would be very difficult to do. Because it easily slips away, it's easily pulled out, and it doesn't have much of a firm grip on it. Now the second finger is what we call the ring finger. The ring finger is a place where it's a little bit more devoted. And we think about marriage and devoted to that person. Well, the idea of the ring finger is to study God's Word. Study God's Word. And we're rightly dividing the word of truth. And what that means is that we're digging in. More than just reading and listening, but now we're wanting to understand, search the content and understand what's there. And so we are going to study God's Word. And this gives us about 35 to 45% retention. And it's a little bit better than listening and reading and hearing. But this one, we are thinking about it. Now, when you look at your understanding about getting a grip on God's Word, now you have God's Word. Now you have your little finger. You've been hearing it and reading it, and now you've been studying it. And now you have a little bit more of a better grip. But still, it's not quite as good, and you can let information slip, and it doesn't get retained as well. So we're needing to continue with the 5-finger grip. Well, the tall finger or the middle finger is important, and this is where we give a little bit more attention to God's Word in detail, and that is we memorize it. We memorize God's Word. That is, we take it in and we have it to a point where we can remember it. 1 Corinthians 10:13 says this, "There hath no temptation taken you, but such is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that you are able, but will with the temptation make a way of escape." Wow, I memorized that verse 42 years ago. I remember going through these verses, and I remember too that it had to go from short-term memory into long-term memory. But this will aid you. And you know what? Your retention rate goes way up to about 80 to 85% when you memorize something. And that's really important when it comes to God's Word. Hey, now you're getting a better grip on God's Word. Now you're not only listening to it, you're not only studying it, and you've memorized it and are thinking about it, meditating on it. But look at that grip. That's getting pretty strong, pretty strong. But what about this last finger? This last finger is known as the trigger finger. And for a very good reason, right? So we can make it look like a trigger, you know, like we're firing a gun. But this is important. In fact, research tells us that if you were to teach it to somebody, that is, take what you've listened to, read and heard and studied and memorized, and now teach it to someone, here's the amazing thing. You're going to retain almost close to 97% because you're teaching it. And you're able to, it almost like it engraves it into your heart more than to the person that you're teaching. That's phenomenal. And when you look at God and His Word and then getting a grip on it, wow, it's almost like impossible to pull it away because you got a good grip on what you're doing. Hey, Colossians 3:16 says this: "Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly in all wisdom as you teach and admonish one another." Hey, do you have a grip on God's Word? I encourage you to apply the full hand in doing that.